Welcome to EEP Africa Knowledge Week 2026. This session is being recorded. My name is Kelly Kiyadara, and I'm the Fund Communications Officer at EEP Africa. It's a pleasure to host you all today. EEP Africa Knowledge Week is a 3-day virtual event exploring emerging themes and innovative projects in the clean energy sector across Southern and Eastern Africa. And most importantly, the goal of this week is to empower the voices of entrepreneurs. Before we dive into this incredible Day 3 session, I'd like to quickly go over a few house rules. If you have any questions during the session, please send them through the Q&A panel. It is located right next to the chat. If you see a question you'd also like answered, feel free to upvote it by clicking the arrow beneath the question. This helps us prioritize the most popular questions. And we will do our best to answer as many questions as possible at the end, time permitting. And without further ado, we have an incredible session on digitalization and AI for the clean energy sector, moderated by Vivian Varnier, CEO of InAccess. And we also have a powerful lineup of panelists. We've got Alex Galicier, co-founder and head of R&D at Micro Asset Finance Lab, Brianna Schuler, director of digital product at Access to Energy, Leroy Nyangani, co-founder and CEO at Neat Energy, and Jessen Singulane, founder and CEO at Sifefu. We look forward to an insightful discussion. With that, I hand over the floor to you, Vivian.
Thank you, Kelly. And hello and welcome to everybody. Nice to see such a broad and big audience that has joined us here today. We really want to deep dive today with this nice panel and a few presentations that we will have prior to the panel on where we stand in digitalization today in the sector, but particularly how digitalization and AI can impact and improve the sector. I will start with a short intro on myself and on InAccess, which I will do with a presentation, which you will see in a second. And I think you see it now. I'm Vivian, as mentioned by Kelly, the CEO of the InAccess Foundation. At InAccess, we do work with digitalization and IoT and so on, but we have a very particular angle to it because we believe that. Sorry, I didn't start the slideshow, right? Which would be great. And now you see it as a slideshow? No, you don't.
Not yet.
Now you do. Sorry.
There we go.
My mistake. And in InAccess, we have a particular approach, which I want to discuss and shed light a bit on digitalization. In energy access sector, we know we need low-cost, resilient technology to achieve connections. That brings us to a lot of different stakeholders. Is it big companies, big utilities, small nonprofits, big nonprofits, community-led, and also some just household-led projects doing the work to electrify. However, these sector stakeholders very often find themselves reinventing technology, also digital technology, using public funds or private equity or philanthropic funds. So at InAccess, what we do, we solve sector challenges by promoting and supporting open source and collaborative approaches to develop these technologies wherever it makes sense to stimulate then also business opportunities for companies in the sector. So to empower the companies and the communities. Open source has a couple of benefits. Let's see 3 of them. It democratizes access to energy because it allows more participation from bottom up, but also from big companies, from small companies, from nonprofits, locally and domestically owned companies can jointly collaborate to overcome common challenges to then focus on actually connecting more people than being stuck with technology challenges that already have been solved by others. It stimulates interoperability, which also can be a market driver for new innovative solutions and not being stuck with logins, customer logins that are just because of missing interoperability. And the most important point, we think, is the efficient use of donor funds to not constantly reinvent technology, which is just required to do the end goal, which the end goal is electrifying and not necessarily inventing new technology. The inventing the technology should be the tool we use on the way to it. Now, we want to discuss about digitalization and AI in particular. We had done, like a year ago, some research in the sector and found that more than 60% of the companies are very dissatisfied with their level of digitalization today. And actually no company we talked to, and we talked to like 30 or 40, said that none of them was 100% satisfied with their degree of digitalization. And about 40% were not using any tool besides spreadsheets at all. And like a particular point here, 75% of them actually responded they would benefit from like a tool that helps them identify the right tools and how they could use them. So one project we have been working on, beyond others, I want to highlight here is the Digitalization Support Hub, which consists of an intuitive tools map where people can navigate tools that are available, and with filters and categorization can find out and explore tools, and from there then go to the corresponding page. They can use filters like open source, not open source, paid, not paid, free, freemium versions, free trial versions, and a couple of others. I won't walk you through all them. And we are also piloting hands-on support to the companies, working them, understanding their digitalization challenges, and working and helping them to actually digitalize, always with a thing where we can leverage free and open source tools. With no further ado, I want to move to the presentations on our digitalization and AI experts in the sector today, but want to leave you with the message that we believe digitalization, the energy access sector, using open source and collaborative tools and approaches will get us faster to actually achieving universal energy access, because it's a joint sector impact we reach with collaborating on essential tools. So join us in the open source collaboration, digitalizing the energy access sector. And yeah, let's keep co-designing and co-creating a brighter and lighter energy future. With this, you can find on the left side the Discord community. On the right side, you can see a bit more on an axis. Now, let's start with the first presentation. I want to call up Jason, which is the co-founder and CEO of Xifu, and he will give us a bit on insights on what they do at their company with digital management energy equipment that you provide to digitalize the sector. The floor is yours. You have about 5 minutes, Jason. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Let me know if you see my screen.
We do see.
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, thank you. Oh, it's a bit tricky to say my company name is Shipefu. Shipefu actually meaning conventional candle in our mother tongue. What we do, we digitalize and we communicate with electricity by using ER and the smart device that we produce in our company. So we are a Mozambique company specializing in automation and smart audit for energy. We have many impacts since we started in 2020. So we usually do also training for young electricians, because we need to spread the word about how to get the energy efficiency in the houses, even in the companies. Because here in Mozambique, the electrician business is very traditional. They are in the people, not in the business. So it's not common to find a company doing the electrician for house or even for business. So we are doing this to impact more young people to develop self-employment by using our solutions. As well, we are spreading the word by them. But since we start, we also audit more than 1 gigawatt in terms of energy. We also reducing 150 tons of CO2 every year. The problem that we are solving it's a lack of real-time information about the energy. Yeah? Also, we don't have, it's not common to find solutions for AC, for geyser to reduce the power consumption. So we are also providing this kind of device we are building here. We provided options to turn on or turn off your equipment by using your phone, anywhere in the world by using internet as well, because we have a problem with internet in Mozambique in some areas. We developed this device to also work in mode offline. So it's possible to do also this using offline mode. So here I have one live demo so you guys can test it. This is for smart meter. We provided the energy of our office. If you scan this QR code, we will send you to a chat, a WhatsApp.
We lost you, Jason. At least I did. Okay.
I can't hear him either.
Jason, are you still there? Okay, I will give him a few more seconds. Otherwise, we might proceed with the next presentation and give him the chance to complete once he's back. Yeah, I think internet connection dropped. As we are a bit tight on timeline, I suggest Dr. Brianna Schiller, you can go next and bring up your presentation and enlighten us on the prospect platform that you can present us. And if Jason come back, we will give him the remaining minutes to complete this presentation.
Yes, certainly. Are you guys able to see my screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay, hold on. You put it in slideshow mode. Okay. Great. So I'm working with Prospect, as Vivian said. Our overall goal is in the energy space to have people stop guessing and rather have the data available for what they're doing. I think everyone here is on board with that concept. So generally, we're an open source digital public good for collecting and visualizing standardized and trusted energy impact data. That could be all types of data. I'll show a little bit in a second. So this is a very busy slide, but just to give you a general overview, we've been working on basically taking information from like mini grid inverters, meters, etc., grid data, solar energy data, payment data, transactions as well. So IoT payments, anything in a CRM, taking all of that and putting it into a standardized form within a single system. So you can go in and say, I have this type of inverter, I have this type of payment system, I'm using this CRM, and then the data will flow into the Prospect system. And it's standardized across all different types of data sources. We're super secure with the way it's stored, so it's all GDPR compliant. And then we have a number of dashboards where you can view the data. So this is helpful. So how does it use? So it's used oftentimes by results-based finance programs. So if they're working on giving out subsidies, they want to better understand if the devices that they've subsidized are working in the field, if they're being paid off, etc. Also, it can be used for impact reporting. So if I have an investor in my company and the investor wants to see how are my devices actually performing in the field, they can look at the data within Prospect. If they have multiple different companies that they're working with different CRMs and everything, different KPIs, then they can see within Prospect a standardized view of those data. And then also the data can be used for research and planning as well. So the idea here is just like whether you have a solar home system, a mini grid, whatever, it all generates energy and it's used. And the sort of setup for all these is very similar. Here's an example of what something might look like. So you can see consumption over time. You can see daily profile of some data. You can see data over time as well. And the idea is just to be able to say, are these devices working, et cetera? How are they looking? And especially in comparison with other types of devices. So the general idea is that you can see energy data and you can also see payment data. However, as part of what we've been doing, we've been working with several organizations who say, this is great, I love to see this data, this is super helpful, but then they say, but can you then build for me this other interface? Because not only do I want to see the hourly usage of the data, but I also want to see like my distribution of of sales in different regions, and I want to see like the percentage of whatever the percentage of this type of cook stove that was sent, or that we've been selling. I want to see like the number of women that are using it or something. So we're getting a lot of questions like this, which is really great. However, rather than our team being the blocker to say, okay, we have to build you this dashboard, we have to create these numbers, we've been working on a project where you can just input questions into a large language model. You can say the exact question you want to answer, and then the LLM, the large language model, will actually run the analysis on its own. So the LLM turns that into code and then runs it for you. So I'm going to show an example of that. Okay. So in the example, we have, let's say we're working with a governmental body that's handing out subsidies, that's delivering subsidies based on solar systems that are installed across the country. And they want to say, they have to put together a presentation, and they say, I want to know what are the top 3 regions of the country in which where like we've sold to the most women. So then I can try to come up with a question, and I say, what are the top 3 regions in terms of sales to women? And this could be any type of question. And then as the LLM is working, then you can see it's working down here. Like you, as the person with not as much knowledge of the SQL or the code to look at this, but you have the knowledge of the market. You have the very deep knowledge of the whole context. So then you don't need to know beyond that. And then the AI is actually just showing you exactly what you want to see. So it will come out and say, here's the table in terms of what you've asked for. So the idea here is that we're working in markets where like people have a very, very deep knowledge and a very deep understanding of their market, but maybe not as much access to technical tools, or just not the time to build up their technical expertise. This would allow them to be able to interact with data in such a way that they don't need to spend all that time working on the technical side when they already have the more important part, which is understanding of the market in place. That is all I wanted to show, but happy to answer more questions about it later.
Thank you, Brianna. I think Jason is back, right? I see you at least. Can you come back on screen and finish your presentation?
Yeah, thank you. I'm so sorry, the internet is very poor this side.
So just bring up your presentation and go back where you dropped off, which was when you were explaining what happens if people scan. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I was here. I was trying to show how to use this demo. So you can scan the QR code, and this QR code will send you to WhatsApp, and you are able to chat with the AI regarding how to see how much of energy you are spending and which days you will waste more energy, and it will give you also tips how to reduce the power consumption, even if let's say big business or even in the banks. So I'll go through the next one. So this one it's possible as well to scan. You can have the live demo. you can see how to turn on or turn off remotely any electrical device by using your phone. So you can schedule the time also to turn off or turn on to avoid the waste of energy. With this approach, we're able to reduce more than 30% of, about 30% of electricity for business who use too much air conditioner and also labs. So I can go to show you like a small demo as well here. Like, you just need to use a Google account to log in the app. And you have like a live demo on this side here. So we need to wait internet again. It's very slow. In this area, we'll show the live demo that you can see a lamp, and anyone in the room can also join by using the QR code I show to turn on or turn off this lamp remotely. Okay, the internet is not very good today. Let's try again the last time. Okay, this is not answering. I can move to the ER. It's a WhatsApp, so you can chat hello. Show me the data of this month, this week. And this year will calculate everything that I ask and answer me. And it also here give me the answer of all those days and give me how much of energy I spend for each site or for each device. It's also send the report in charts so that it can show you how much you spend. You see more visually to be easier to analyze the data. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason, for that nice presentation and demo. Love to see things working live. And as next, I would invite Alex Galissier from Micro Asset Finance Lab to enlighten us a bit more about your work on microcredit assessment and management for PAYGO companies and development in general. Over to you.
Great, thank you, Vivian. Hello, everyone. Share. So here's a short presentation of the Micro Asset Finance Lab, formerly known as PAYGO Lab. That's the name you might have known us until the end of last year. So we are a group of practitioners who've all held like management roles in microfinance and the PAYGO sector. And we came together a few years ago to set up a credit tier provider. So we provide technical assistance on credit to company doing financing of micro asset. That means equipments that are impactful equipments that are sub $2,000. So that's solar home systems, clean cook stoves, fridge, solar pumps, etc. And we provide both quantitative and qualitative support. In quantitative support, that means we did a lot of work, especially on measuring effectively credit performance in a clean and standardized way with related impacts of commercial growth in order to give company a full transparency on what actually the performance was, and especially how their unit economic checks out. We do also a bit of support on digitalizations of operations. And then we do qualitative support. That means really diving into credit operations, trying to identify pain points and challenges, and training and supporting companies to enhance their credit performance and general customer experience. So yeah, to date, I've been supporting over 40 PAYGO country operations in 19 countries with a team of 7 practitioners whom you can see below. And that's the only thing I had to present today.
Thanks a lot, Alex, and thanks for saving us time. You know, that is great to bring us back on track. And that brings us to the last presentation of the day before we jump into the panel. Leroy from Neat Energy will introduce their virtual power plant, approach for exchanging energy in energy markets. Leroy, are you there and can come up online?
Yeah, thank you. Can you see me? And am I
We don't,
audible?
Yeah, now, yeah, you're audible. Your camera is on. Now just your slides. Over to you.
All right, thank you. Yeah, well, thank you, everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Leroy Nyangani. I'm the co-founder and also the CEO at Neat Energy. So today's presentation really is about the work that we've been carrying out, I would say, for the longest part of my adult life, but also for the strongest part since EEP started supporting us the past year. So what we've built is what I would believe probably is Southern Africa's first independent energy exchange, fully driven by a private company. And also, our energy exchange is based on the VPP or virtual power plant technology that probably most of you have heard or have seen it in action, especially if you are from, I would say, more mature markets like Europe or the Americas. So the whole goal for us, or the problem behind why we started, was the simple fact that, Zimbabwe, the country, has been experiencing a lot of blackouts. Once upon a time, we were experiencing about 16 hours. But the upside to that was that most people started investing in renewable energy sources. Then we have seen an exponential growth of those deployments in the past 3 to 4 years. And we believe that, we don't have the data, but we probably assume and believe that around 400 megawatts has been deployed independently and privately. So this means that, the country or the grid has capacity, but pretty much we don't know where it is. So this is where we came in to try and connect these assets to the grid so that we can unlock the generation capacity. The impact is that, one, you minimize the load shedding or the blackouts. You also bring an alternative to what the state utility is offering, but also secondly is the cost, right? Because all of this power is pretty much coming from solar, and solar prices are low, and people are willing to exchange that power on very minimal, on very competitive prices compared to the utility sector. So what we do is that we come with our smart meter and we connect your solar power plant, as you have seen on the left. Then we tap into the smart meter, and also we tap into your inverter. We run that inverter through what our energy exchange, which we also call Memeza. So this energy exchange pretty much orchestrates everything in terms of collecting every data every 15 minutes. Then post that, uses that data to forecast your generation capacity and also the demand on the other side. Then once we have that data outlay or that insight, we then start matching the demand in the supply side of things. So you would find that there are some assets that have excess power that are then matching with assets that have demand. Then, that power then transported from that one side to the other through our matching engine. That this unlocking has also allowed, power, those blackouts to go down. On average now in Zimbabwe, I'll say we now have 4 to 6 hours. I'm not saying all of it is due to Neat Energy's work, but it's highly being driven and influenced by these generation assets that has also minimized the stress on the grid. So pretty much what we do at Neat Energy is that we pretty much spend our time looking into these insights, after collecting that data, forecasting and orchestrating. These insights tell us, where there's demand, where there's generation capacity. Then when we match each person who's buying from this, who's allowing these credits to then land on the other side, they need to know, where is that power coming from. And not just that, also, when you then transfer these electrons, there's the issue of grid costs that are involved. So also people would need to know how much, what is the cost of actually transporting that one electron, and how much of that excess capacity is able to meet my demand. So pretty much, we have built this matching engine, and we spend pretty much, hours in our days coming up with these insights, matching these energy transfers on a 15 minute interval every day. Then at the end of the month, we then generate a bill that shows you how much of your energy you bought from the state utility, how much of your energy that you received as a credit from the Neat Energy Exchange. We also integrate with your captive power plants. So we also show how much of that energy you have actually received from your own power generation site. So these are just the visualizations or the data tables that we collect and mimic every 15 minutes for these assets that are transferring credits to each other and also receiving energy from each other source. That's pretty much my presentation. I don't know how much time I have left, but really, if you want to get in touch, that is my email, and also that is my call number, and also my WhatsApp number. I don't know, Vivian, if I have some time left, I would also like to do a demo on our platform.
Unfortunately, you already overrun, so I'm sorry to cut you off. So as we are short on time and you already consumed your 5 minutes, I'd cut it off here.
Right. No,
and,
that's okay.
Thank you. Thanks you a lot, Leroy, and thanks to all the panelists, Alex, Brianna, Jason, and Leroy. Jason, you can keep your camera on, and I invite Alex, Brianna, and Jason to come up the stage. First of all, a little reminder in the chat, if you have used the opportunity already to present themselves and actually shared links and references to work they're working on and their company names, invitation to everybody to do that, because that can be a place of network. We want to stimulate collaboration. I've mentioned that earlier a couple of times. So use it, and also use the chat to post any questions that you might have, because later we'll have the Q&A. If we have time, we will try to make time for it, but it will make it easier if we already see the questions you have lined up. So use the chat to network, present yourself, and to post your questions. So with no further ado, let's jump into the panel. That was a super insightful way on looking on digitalization and AI in different ways. We saw how applications and using WhatsApp combined with AI can be used to get very digestible information in a very easy way for non-techie users, or using data and AI tools to make advanced analysis for donors or policy planning, but also the operators of the project, and also how digitalization and these data points relate to actually financing and finance structures with loans and microfinancing, and how AI can be used in using a virtual power plant approach. I really have a problem with this word. To manage energy flows and improve grid stress, and at the same time actually create financial gains. And we want to deep dive a bit now with these great experts we have here and the different level of knowledge and angles to the topic. And we want to shed light on 4 main topics today. The one is, why do we believe digitalization actually matters, and particularly today? And explore a bit we all know data is prerequisite as a foundation for making digital innovation and AI actually possible. What does it mean? What are the implications? Where do they come from? And that is related to the next topic, which would be the smart devices, actually, because these are the ones that we require to actually have the data and the IoT to actually have access to this data, and then look a bit at some practical use cases in that context. And we can't forget, and should not forget, the policy aspect and regulation aspect, which also is related to actual trust and by the actual users and the sector and the beneficiaries. So we want to shed light on all that. We have limited time, and so I will jump into that right now with a question to all 4 of you panelists. And in your view and in your experience, what is the most important digital shift that you have, or shift, transformation, development, evolvement, however you want to call it, that you have observed in the sector in the recent years? Anyone that wants to take the first shot? Otherwise, I will pick one of you.
I think I can move since my network is stabilized now. So yeah, for us, from SHIPE, why digital just matter. You know, when we start to work with auditing companies, we start with the static devices. So that's what we need. We have to go in the field and put the meters there, and we have technicians go there to the field time by time to get the data, né? and then we report to the client. But then we start to, we develop a tool so that can, with the Internet of Things, so that we can push the data to our database. Though so in that point, we shift from static data to dynamic data. So it was very easy to manage all this information. But we still have one problem, and we need to do reports every time for the clients, and sometimes we have many clients and we have time to respond for all of them. And we say, okay, let's give them the platform so that they can go there and see with the data and make analysis. But it's not easy for everybody. So then with artificial intelligence, we move to another step so that we integrate with the WhatsApp, so we can make it more easier to the users, to the final users, to at least get a little bit of information of the data. But the deep information we provide them with the platforms, with the reports that we give them, but it is not blind on all this process. And it's more easy as well when we go to the client and say, okay, now we can give you a report about the audit, and what we have to do is this and this and this. Put a solar system with this size. It's so easy to explain because they have all the information, and they have the information in very human rights. So it's very easy. For me, the big shift is moving from static to real-time in data-driven energy management.
Thank you, Jason. And you already bring a keyword. We will come back later on the real-time and the importance of real-time and the limitations of real-time, but I will keep that for later. Now to the others, Brianna, Leroy, Alex, any thing to add? What's in your observation in the recent years?
Or I can add on that, and I see there's a question in the chat about how does this relate to how does the innovation help serve underserved communities in remote off-grid areas. So to add on to what Jason said, the ability to remotely sort of detect and monitor issues allows a lot more a lot more issues to be diagnosed remotely, which means you can still just maintain your technical expertise in cities, and then you can really have a lot more impact remotely than you could have before. Where someone can just say, oh, you just need to turn off the device and turn it back on, or something, or you have to stop plugging in things to your device that are causing the voltage to have an over voltage, or something like this, that you wouldn't have someone in the field necessarily be able to address before, that wouldn't have that level of technical expertise. Another digital shift that has been mostly in the past year or two is rather starts as a political shift that happened sort of in the US and Europe, where a lot of the politics are shifting to be more internally focused, less focused on actually like investing in development. This in a lot of ways has been really bad, but in some ways has been good in that it's requiring these programs to be more transparent, more efficient, etc. So that sort of political shift has forced programs to like justify their existence. So I think in one way that's been really good, so that the programs are becoming more efficient because they have to, and becoming more transparent because they have to. Yeah, and I think there's a lot with AI increasing access to analyses. Like I tried to show in my presentation, where like if you don't have the technical expertise in house, there's so much AI coming online right now that can just say, okay, you need to make this. What do you need? And then you write it in words, and then all of a sudden you have a working prototype.
Yep, thank you. Alex, Leroy, you have anything to add to that? Looks like yes.
Yeah, well, I will sort of like definitely second what Brianna just said. It's around data, and even further than AI, I think now it's much easier to extract, store, and process data than it was a few years ago, with solutions that are easy to use and can be open sources. And I think really sort of really aligned with Prospect motto, which is stop guessing, and just being able to measure your performance in standardized ways has led to massive transformation, with company realizing that they were not having the impact they think they had, both in a positive and negative light. And so also sort of like forcing companies a bit to justify their impact and have measurable impacts, which is mine with what I just said around justification. And right now, I think a few years ago, there were a lot more funds, especially, for example, in the PEGO industry. But now with having less funds, I think there's also a lot more focus on impact, which is, again, correlated to this data access.
Yeah, no, Vivian, I agree with the rest of the team. My point really to stress across is that, digitalization, and to an extent, AI allows, we have also to bring context here. We are global south. We are the poorest of the poorest. We are the underserved. So I think, this moment in time of our lives, the technology in relationship to AI and digitalization allows us to close the gap, right? Close the gap in research, close the gap in engineering, close the gap in industrialization, something that would have been hard to do if you look 20 to 30 years ago, with regards to the resources that you would need, right? So if Jason was to launch a utility company like what he's doing in Mozambique 30 years ago, Jason as a starting point would have needed, in excess of 5 million, 10 million US dollars to be able to provide such a service. Hire, 10 thousands of, technicians to be on the ground to deploy and read the meters on a month-to-month basis, run the paperwork that is involved to actually make a bill. But today you can just, press a button, integrate with a few models, have access to the database, and be able to provide the service at the same level at which 100 million US dollar utility has in resources. So that would be definitely my contribution to this, that it's allowing us to close the gap in catching up with Western world that is more mature, that is more progressive in the sense of, technology with context. Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, all of you, and thank you, Leroy. And I would like to hook in here, Leroy, on the. I mean, you just met the relation to like underserved realities and regions, and catching up on technology and so on. Even though, I mean, I also know that the global north in some ways is sometimes in some things quite behind in technology, maybe not in energy and so on, but I mean, that's, you really see how there's a very mutual learning and exchange here. But I wanted to ask you, and particularly, I mean, I think you've gone a bit into that direction. How do you see particularly digitalization has changed the way that distributed energy assets can be monetized and possibly managed? But I think the monetized aspect is here the more interesting one. And could you maybe like describe that a bit in a bit more detail?
Yeah, so I would actually put our case to light here. I'm in Zimbabwe, Southern Africa. I think there are 3 countries that have made headlines for the past 5 years when it comes to energy, right? South Africa, due to a lot of load shedding. Zimbabwe was also in there, and Zambia for the past year, right? So that's the negative that you see on the news, right? But the positive that you also probably don't see on a day-to-day basis, you just come across when Leroy is speaking on a platform like this, or you go to an energy conference, is that these countries have done so much well in deploying these distributed energy assets, and most of it hasn't been driven by government spending, right? It's private capital that is being deployed for these assets, and these assets, in my view, are world-class, right? But there's always been that gap to say, you have deployed this world-class asset. How does it then integrate with the greater, grid, that was once centralized, right? How do we then transition from that, management of a centralized grid to a more distributed grid that brings value, that and impact, impact being clean energy access to people, reduction in blackouts, reduction in the cost of power. So digitalization is something that has managed to unlock these assets so that they can also participate in an energy market, in an energy mix, which was something that we wouldn't even be talking about, 10 to 20 years ago. And it's as simple as installing a smart meter, that is taking readings on a day-to-day basis, 15-minute interval in our cases. And also the digitalization part is being able to use IoT technologies to communicate with your inverters, right? Then you orchestrate them. Then all of a sudden, you are running, hundreds of smaller mini power plants in the same way someone is running a full-scale 600 megawatt coal power plant. So the impact that we have seen in South Africa, no load shedding anymore because of these assets. In Zimbabwe, we have also managed to cut that. In Zambia also, they are going there, right? And also these are things that they have nothing that is beyond their control. Like climate is affecting hydro levels. So it means Zimbabwe and Zambia can't produce more power. And South Africa, coal is becoming more and more expensive, 1, to run, and 2, to finance, right? So I think I've said quite enough, just to bring light on how digitalization has managed to unlock capacity, unlock impact at the end of the day. And this is where we are and appreciating this level of technology as of today. Yep.
Thank you, Leroy. Yeah, super interesting, and seeing like the power on digitalization and AI to bundle distributed energy systems to make them like similarly acting in a market, and by that being able to monetize them and manage them. I would now like to go a bit into like data as like the point we are talking about when we are talking about digitalization and AI. All this is completely impossible on the one side and worthless if you don't have data. But I mean, that data is a big topic also on which kind of data is actually necessary, because you can obviously use like just an infinite amount of data, and then I mean you have like large models and then consume energy and time and whatsoever. Or you can also be a bit more strategic about data and thinking about which data I actually need, and do I need real-time data? Do I need which data points are actually relevant? So maybe to Alex, to you, maybe very short, which are the main type of data that you think are meaningful for for your work and for improving the business models of the companies you work with?
Yeah, no, definitely interesting questions. I mean, so at MathLab we've worked with, as I mentioned, over 40 companies to date. And typically the first question they ask usually is, we've sold to thousands or tens of thousands of customers over the year. Can you build us a credit scoring model? Because we have a lot of data points on those customers. We know we've collected demographic data, et cetera, et cetera. And so they want a tool where they can plug it in a new customer application. It will say yes or no if the customers have a risky profile. But it almost never works. And there's two main reasons for that. First, there's always the question of data quality, where you see a lot of customers that are 0 or 99 years old. But I think the main issue, and truly the type of data that is missing when you work with pay-go company in general, it's the why. Is why customer defaulted or not. Was it because they couldn't afford the product, or whether the product broke or something else? Just to give a very short example, when I was working in Côte d'Ivoire, we were just doing a deep dive on customers and to really understand the challenges. And we saw a customer, and there was a cocoa farmer in their 50s, and they had defaulted on a large system. And on paper, that customer made over $1,000 a month, so well enough to cover the price of the product. But we called the customer, and the customer was just like, the product was installed at their farm, and so he wasn't going there every day. He was going there like a couple of times a month. He had missed on-payment notifications and got frustrated having to pay penalties. So the customer defaulted. But the problem is, if you don't have that information and you want to build a model on that, basically it will tell you oh, beware of 50-year-old cocoa farmers because they are at risk. Well, here the case was not the profile, but the sales process was at risk. And without that context that is missing most of the time, the model is useless. And so just to extend a bit my point about this data could be created, but further, I think there's a bit of a silo problem in the industry which is a huge issue because it stopped from having a thriving ecosystem. So for example, at MathLab, we have a huge data set, but we have this through specific mandates, and it's not available right now because we can't share those data necessarily. And the problem, let's imagine that tomorrow I want to build a new credit scoring model. I couldn't go and knock on company's door to get access to their data. And so the problem is the only way to have access to data at the moment is to actually sell product yourself. That means you can't be specialized in building tools for the industry. You have to sell those ourselves. And so, yeah, I think that Brianna had a lot of ideas on how we could break those silos through open sources approach.
Yeah, Brianna, you want to hook in there? Yeah, perfect. Go ahead.
No, let me hold off for now. But maybe let me add one thing on what Alex was saying there. So if I put my industry hat on for a second, I'm now at a research institute, but before I was working mostly in Uganda on Pay-go Solar, and at that time we had one of my favorite models that I was leading the data team, and one of my favorite models that we had was looking at device usage in the first 2 weeks after a kit was sold, and we found we could actually segment based on that, or we could actually predict based on that what the repayment would be at day 90, and then within that we could say why they were not repaying. Was it because it was their backup system? Was it because they were not using the system correctly, etc. And then based on that we could target exactly what we needed to do to say, hey, you're plugging the wrong thing into your system, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's a lot of ways to use energy usage data to actually help with repayment. Yeah, and you just need to know what the question is that you want to actually answer.
No, yeah, definitely. I think usage is insanely connected. Like early usage is insanely connected to long-term repayment, and that it's such a strong production that it's extremely useful. But again, like always, the question of the why, customer default. And I think usage indeed can maybe help with that. Monitoring usage can help you tell whether the customer is not using the product on a weekly basis and just on the weekend, which should tell you it could be a backup service. But again, those data tend to be missing. I think there's, out of all the PAYGO company we work with, only a very few numbers have usage monitoring capacity, just because the kit themselves lack this kind of capacity to record and share those data. So we tend to only have access to purely payment data, 1 or 0. Is the kit unlocked or not? Yeah.
So, I mean, just to try to recap a bit what I got from here, from you two. The one thing is, like, quality of data is a problem, that it's, I mean, just, yeah, there is a lot of data collected, but it's sometimes not the right one, or it's wrong structured, or not well organized. And secondly, this siloing of, there is a lot of data sets which are not aligned, which are not standardized, and they are sitting somewhere in some private hands. And like the siloing, that, like the silo that you were both mentioning, no? And so this is like, there's little value in the separate data sets. Yeah, go ahead, Brian, if you want to.
Maybe I could just add, like, on that, like, so yes, data is useful if it's actually going to result in an action. But so many times people would come to us and say, I want to see, you know, I want to see something. I want to see, and we would say, what are you going to do with that information? And they were like, it's just interesting. So we would never work on that project, right? You only want to work on projects where the data will actually show you something that gives you an action to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, and on that, because we are talking about quality and the type of data, I wanted to, I mean, ask all, but I think, Brianna, you might have a point there on, like, often everybody takes up, we need real-time actual data and so on, which I guess for some of the things we've seen is super important, but there's also limitation. I mean, real-time data has a lot of implications on amount of data, managing data, connectivity, IoT devices, etc., which all comes with cost, and not only cost in the CapEx, but also in operating and maintaining it. So, I mean, could you maybe very quickly, because we are short on time, try to like give your point of view here on where it makes sense to balance that, and where, like, real-time data might have a limitation also and are not that important?
Who is that one directed? Who's that question directed to? Is that me?
For you, Brianna, mainly, but I mean, I'm happy because I believe you have the. I mean, I guess you can say something to that, but also the others are more than free to.
Sure. Yeah. So I'll basically, yeah. So I think, as you mentioned, like, the real-time data, things like this can be actually very expensive to be collecting. So yeah, I think it's always just a question of, like, what am I going to do with this data, and is it worth the cost? If I just want to see, oh, I want a pretty picture of the map of my devices, I mean, that's fine, and you can get that information, but is it worth the thousands of dollars a month you're going to spend getting it? Unless you have an actual plan for how you're going to make use of it.
Yeah, great. And making a transition to a bit of regulation and data privacy and so on, because it has also already popped up in the chat as well. And just for the audience, be interested, we will try to cover most of your questions at the end in the Q&A. Like, on how do you, I mean, I think that's mainly relevant for Micro Asset Finance Lab and for Need Energy, because how do you manage, like, the balance between creating innovation, actual value, but also customer privacy and data responsibility practices that you have? I think you have give some, like, indications to that already, but would be happy to hear a bit more on what are your considerations there. But obviously, there are, like, the legal considerations which limit you clearly, but they are also evolving quickly in the world where digitalization and data management evolves quickly. So would love to hear a bit on how you deal with that.
Yeah.
Ilio, go ahead.
Just to quiet, I think it will be a short answer. I think pretty much, in the markets that we operate in, I think they are highly regulated. in the sense that you know what to do and know what not to do, right? So in Zimbabwe, there was a regulation launched, I think, last year that has been enforced. So that actually also protects, clients and end user on the data that probably cannot be used in a way that can harm them or that can expose them. So there are always these guidelines that we then follow, especially in the markets that we are in. At least in us in Zimbabwe, we're fortunate that we have these guidelines and regulations. Yeah, so that would be my feedback on that.
Anything to add on that, Alex? Jason?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, in our case in Mozambique, unfortunately, we don't have many regulations for that. What is the issue, because we need to have like a trust from the part of the client, because we are going to collect his data and what we're going to do with his data. So it's important to have a trust and to be more clear with the client. So what kind of data I'm going to collect, and be very, very transparent for that. So regulation here is still in process. There's there's a process on it, but we're not there yet about it, because we noticed that the innovation is upfront from the regulations, here in Mozambique. I'm not talking only about the AI and everything, but in many sectors we have this issue. So we need to speed up in terms of regulation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, great. I'd like to hook in a bit more on regulations. There's the data topic, obviously, but particularly if we look at models that you do at Need Energy, Leroy, there's the regulation that you need on energy trading, right? So I would love to hear a bit more how this regulation in relation with digitalization, not necessarily on the data side, on data privacy side of it, but how does that impact or enable or disable actual innovation for you by using digitalization and AI for the models that you are promoting or working on?
Yeah, so I would definitely lean more on our domain industry, right, which is energy, right? Because digitalization, AI becomes a tool that you then overlay on the industry that you're operating in. So, currently in Zimbabwe, right, the Electricity Act and also the Renewable Energy Policy, or the energy policy, and the regulations within the country, they do promote for privatization, right? But for the past years, that wasn't said out loud until last year, when the government was like, we are opening the market. Private players can now come into the market and add some value and participate probably at the same competing level as state utilities. You would know that most of African countries, things like to do with electricity, water, those are industries that were only reserved for government entities. But at least in Zimbabwe, that is opened that up. So now, how do you compete in an open market like that, right? So if you are more, on the tech front of things, how you develop, your business model, how you sell, how you structure service for end users. I think the tech side of things kind of minimize the workload and also bring some level of intelligence that, someone would come into that same market doesn't have the same strategy as you are, right? So from day one, you are competing at a very high level. I would even put the case in point of, data access, right? So if we were to come to you and say, we would like to sell power to you, but in that action, we will minimize the cost of power to you, right? For me to say that, I can't just say that as a statement. I need data to back me up, as proof that I can definitely reduce that cost for you. But for you to be able to collect that data, you need to invest in IoT systems, you need to collect that data, you need to digitalize, right? So that's like a very useful example of how digitalization or AI gives you a competitive edge in a market that usually is reserved, for government utilities. Even if it's open, It's reserved for people with high balance sheets, like strong balance sheets, where a startup actually finds it quite hard to operate and compete. So yeah, that's the advantage that I see with digitalization and AI and these modern technologies within an open market.
Yeah. If you, and it's maybe an open question to all of you. If you think now, because I mean, we have certainly some early stage companies listening here today, and we have you as sector experts, and we all seek to enable the local and small and early stage companies and want them to succeed. So looking at, if you look at these companies and think about their adoption of digital tools, you know, in my intro, I gave a few figures showing like we have found like a lot of those like using spreadsheet, if at all, and all of them or none of them is really 100% satisfied with their degree of digitalization. If you would now think about your recommendations, what would you, if they are thinking about digitalizing their operations and their business, any recommendations that you would have on how to go about it? Maybe any particular tool, maybe not just like market your own tools here, but thinking in general, how would you approach it if you would be an early stage company, maybe out of experience, to go about it? Anyone?
Yeah, maybe
go ahead.
I can still word. I mean, the big question is there any form of pre-existing technical knowledge in the company? And literally, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you have a lot more like easier way of storing and processing data, but they still require some form of technical knowledge and a little bit of code. And so I see some research company who literally can't necessarily afford to have the technical profiles. And I think probably the big difference right now is with AI. So if you look at any AI provider, ChatGPT or Claude or Google at the moment, literally you can paste a spreadsheet and ask it to build a small app on top. You've got, for example, like Google Canva that does a little bit of HTML. And so you can literally ask it to do a basic app to analyze your receivables and see trends. In Google Canvas right now is allowing to do some small local deployment. So I think if you don't have any technical profile in your team, I think that's probably the biggest recommendation I would have, to run some base analytics using, again, the Canva or data processing capacity of AI tools.
Anything to add from anyone of the other panelists?
Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah. So for me, I think not that I'm promoting MidJourney or anything, but I think I'll be promoting EEP here, right? Also, for me, I think this is also the hardest question because it feels like I'm contradicting myself, right? For us, probably in the power utility sector, we are in that space where you are trying to integrate the physical world, with the digital world, So there's always need to then invest in the infrastructure. I think for AI or for intelligence layer to be built, physical infrastructure needs to be in place that then collects the data. Then, the intelligence could be, the future North Star. So my advice, right, is to find earlier partners like your EEP with, very, I wouldn't call it cheap capital, but capital that would allow you to catalyze, right, to then prove the concept in such a way that, it's investable in the future. It's also scalable in the future. Because really, if you then want to sell power, collect smart data, you need these IoT devices. And for very small companies, this could be very expensive, right? So you also need to look into partners that definitely believe in what you're trying to build and also bring that support, both capital and also structuring support for you to get to a point where you can scale the business.
Thank you, Leroy. Rihanna, you wanted to say something? I give you like half a minute. so we can jump in the other IoT topic before we go to the Q&A. Go ahead.
Sure. I was just going to say, like, really try to take advantage of open source options. Like, I know, for example, PayGops as a Paygo CRM has an open source version, etc. I would suggest to check out like NX's the Digitalisation Hub as well, to see what meets your purposes. And if there are pieces of open source code, really using those as a base. Hiring like a really smart, maybe not like years of experience, but like a really smart data scientist, engineer, software engineer, etc., to help with vibe coding, whatever like specific adaptations you would need to that open source code, I think could get you fairly far.
Yeah, thank you.
I can have like 1 minute.
Sorry, Jason, I would really, because we have one topic we had.
No problem.
Maybe, okay, one sentence.
Okay, so I would also advise. I want to advise that they have to start small, because this can look like nice because we have AI and everything, but there also is danger because we work with electricity, and sometimes it's not like a small field. Sometimes it's big field. So there's something. There are two sides on this. There's a data side, but there's also a physical side with very dangerous electricity. So it's not like a trend. This is serious job. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's, I think, important thing. Don't overdo it. And still be careful and not trust only the data if you don't know about things. But yeah, for everything what is maybe not the electricity related, you can be a bit less careful. But yeah, I think it's important on that side, surely. I want to thank you for the reference to like NXs. I want to say, yeah, certainly. I mean, that's our area that we focus on. We try to enable early stage companies with open and free tools, which try to avoid as much as possible technical expertise. But as Alex said, I mean, there is also ways to like overcome this lack in your team. And as I mentioned earlier in the study we did, I didn't say the reasons, but the reason that were reported were like, often companies do not know which tools exist. If they know which tool exists, they often don't know which one to choose because there are too many. I think they're like the digital tools catalog by GDC, which was mentioned, but also the DSH can help navigate that. But also, again, AI might help like make some analysis here. And staff adoption and adaptation has been mentioned often, besides costing, of course, for the digital tools, but often like the stuff that is resilient. So that's something you have to keep in mind if you go to digital tools. I just want, before we go to the Q&A and to not steal too much time of that, just quickly on we didn't really talk on the hardware side, which is required for all what we are doing, like we want to do with data. So we need IoT devices. No, we need to collect the data, and so when we look at that, particularly in like retrofitting, because I mean we have things which are deployed already today, but how do we how can we look at retrofitting technology to make them smarter? Is there like a ways that you can see that you have maybe some experience with that you could imagine? That's a question that I would ask to all of you. I think, I mean, HAI, you need the data, but also need energy. I mean, I see you deploy new smart meters, but maybe you have looked in the process of developing into retrofitting. Yeah, if you have 1 or 2 sentences to that, happy to hear. Don't need to overly exploit that because we need to go to the Q&A.
And give a quick response to it. I think one of the ways that we're making meters and stuff more accessible is by using just whatever someone already has on hand. Like everyone has in their pocket a much stronger computer and connection to the internet now than we need. So we're working mostly on making meters which don't connect to the internet, which are dumber and dumber. And we just take advantage of the fact that someone has a smartphone that they can just they can get the information from the meter and then use their own internet connection to send it off, or through WhatsApp. We have, for example, meters that just connect through WhatsApp, and then you type in a number and then it sends it off. So taking advantage of the fact that we can make the meters dumber and cheaper.
Yeah, great. Leroy, anything to add? Maybe in your exploration phase on retrofitting, was it maybe just impossible, or?
Yeah, I think there's we still have a long way to get to there, but I think our strategy right now really isn't looking at retrofitting. Surprisingly, right, rural microgrids, I would say, are more intelligent than, the grid that you'll find in an urban area, right? Because all these came in the last 10 years, and people have been having this strategy where, the meter that is interfacing with the platform is much, much smarter, something that you don't have with where we work on the grid. So our strategy right now really is try to find maybe a supplier who is more affordable smart metering that at least is capable to integrate with our systems.
Thank you, Leroy.
Yeah.
With that, I mean, I have so many things I would like to follow up with all of you in deep dive, but unfortunately, this session is shorter as we would need. I think that's also a very broad topic, but we touched on a lot of topics, and I find it very insightful. I learned quite a lot also, and I'm happy to have heard about your innovations, but also your insights on regulation policy, but also on which data are relevant, which data points are relevant, what we need to think about when we deploy the tools, and also where we need to be careful and mindful, but also how powerful they can actually be for decision making, for monetizing, and for energy planning on a policy level. With that, I would hand over to Kelly for the Q&A for the few minutes we have left.
Yes, thank you so much. Indeed, an hour and a half is not enough for this very important topic. We do have time for a couple questions. So let's start with the Q&A box. If you want to follow, there's a very long question, but I will shorten it. You've touched on this a bit. If you want to expand, please do. So the question is, what are the panel's thoughts about increased digitalization in the sector leading to compounded inequality? Will unconnected areas be further disadvantaged if companies and sales agents target areas with connectivity to enable digitalization? So who would like to take that? Do you believe that increased digitalization will lead to compounded inequality?
Maybe I can say on that it can be a bit of a risk, and I think it's really important to get data, but always value quality over quantity. And so it's awesome to have usage data, but you can do so much already with even just the payment data. It gives you a lot of insights already, and really favors something that is robust and focused on having quality data there. So I don't necessarily think that digitalization would lead to underserved community being left out. Again, if there's this focus on getting the best data that you can, rather than getting data at all cost.
I would add to that, and I mean I share the concern, and I see there's a notable risk there, certainly, because I mean we have this from the pay-go world. Now there's this recent movement of leave no one behind, just saying okay, we have by business logic focusing on the best paying customers, which naturally might lead to certain customers which are not credit worth not being electrified. This risk is now being addressed with different ways of energy as a service models or other models to try to be addressing that. But going that now on the data side of that, yeah, I see a risk if we make all our decision data driven. It, as we said earlier, data is necessary to make data-driven decision, and there are certain things we can't reflect in data. I mean, the one thing is because they're not achievable, the regions are too far, too remote, so we don't have data, or they're not connected, so it's hard to actually get data. And then there's a more philosophical question. There's possibly a lot of things we can't reflect in data. Data is also there are certain things of behaviors we might want or believe we can reflect, but there are human thinking and feelings and stuff like that today we are not able to reflect in data. I think some might disagree, but at least that's my personal standpoint. And I believe that's something we should keep in mind in any like models we deploy. And so not saying digitalization per se in the AI is bad, but that's something to really keep in mind when we do our models.
Brianna and
Yeah.
Alex for the final comments, and then we have to conclude.
Sure. So I think this is more of a, like, if it's just straight up with, companies trying to make money, then obviously they're going to go to the places where that's easiest to do. But I think the other thing to consider is programs like Ascent and M300, which are right now sending millions, if not billions of dollars into energy access. And they're really also trying to take advantage of these improvements in technology to make their programs as efficient as possible. Which would allow that money to go as far as possible in terms of increasing access. So hopefully from a policy perspective, some of these issues are addressed.
Thanks. And Alex?
Yeah, no, just wanted to add a few words. I definitely agree with Vivian that some of things are not captured by data. I do feel again that right now AI allows a bit more to know a bit more, especially, for example, if you look at Paygo, you see that a lot of like data was lost, for example, customer interactions, SMSs, feedback, etc. And right now you have companies like Agile Labs, for example, running models where it would capture all the information like the customer journey into something that is a bit more standardized and then can be reused to enhance affordability, to enhance the customer experience, etc. And really try and work with customers who have more challenging journey in order to allow them to succeed. So I do believe that there's a bit of hope here.
Thank you so much. Let's end it on hope. And that concludes our session today. Thank you to all of our speakers. It was a great panel discussion. Let's continue this conversation. And thank you to all of you in the audience for your questions and for your attention. So the recording of this session will be available soon on our website. We have just put a feedback link into the chat. We encourage you to take a few minutes to let us know your thoughts on this session. Now, if you're looking for funding, as we shared yesterday, our call for proposals will launch on Monday on our website at eepafrica.org. We look forward to receiving your applications and wish you all the best. Again, thank you very much, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Right.